Welcome back, everybody, to Simplexity Analytics Seasonal Report. This is for January of 2025. Before we go any further with the heat maps for this January of 2025, I want to just make a quick announcement that now available for purchase and download on the website is our entire year's worth of the weekly and monthly calendars for the trading week of the year and trading month of the year. So what this document has, it lists all the markets that we cover, and it'll list the weeks 1 through 52 and the months 1 through 12, and it has them weighted in this column right here where that week or month ranks throughout the year. So we see here we have a bright green here. So this is the 5th most bullish week of the year for soybean oil, and that is the 6th week of the year. And here for soybeans, we have the 51st week. So that means it's actually the 2nd most bearish week of the year for soybeans, and that occurs on week 10, and it has lost $14,000 over this back test, and it has a winning percentage of only 38%. So this is going to give you an entire year's worth to look ahead on, so you don't have to wait till the next week and the next update on the website. You can see this for yourself and plan your trades accordingly. So for this January, we have two markets that are the most bullish for this month, and that is gold and platinum. And we have only one market that is the most bearish, and that is the Canadian dollar. So we will cover in depth the gold market and the Canadian dollar on the heat maps, and we'll also cover the E-mini as we always do every month. And then we always have the gold and 30-year bonds on the website as well. First up, we will have a look at the Canadian dollar. And this one's a little bit perplexing because the seasonal indicator at the bottom is actually showing that we have a little swoon here in the very beginning of January, and then we have a rally. And as the indicator goes along, we see much of the same thing. We have a rally with a little bit of a dip in each year. So this is a little bit counter to what the stats are showing, because they're showing that January is the most bearish month, and it has only finished higher than it has opened 27% of the time, and it has lost $13,000. So if we go by the indicator at the bottom, that's showing us that that's not really agreeing with what the dollars and the winning percentages are saying. And if you look at the price action itself, a couple of years ago, it started off with a rally and then declined, which is the opposite to what the seasonal indicator says. The following year, that followed almost exactly as the seasonal indicator showed, and then the next year we saw a big drop off in the Canadian dollar. This was last year, 2024, and this would be again counter to what the seasonal indicator said, but it's following on exactly as the most bearish month would indicate. So let's see how this looks on a heat map to compare. The heat map for Canadian dollar certainly agrees with what the dollar amounts and the stats have said about being the most bearish month, in that there's only a very small smattering of green in here. Most of it is red, and there's quite a few bright reds, and those bright reds are concentrated into this second week of January, and we have a lot here as well for the holiday trade. So this column here would be days after holiday, so that would be following Christmas, 7 days and 8 days after Christmas. This column here would be days after holiday. This would be New Year's Day. And we have a column here which is it's got a lot more numbers. That's because this is combined. This is combined days after holiday 8, that's 8 days after New Year's, and 5 days prior to Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So we just combine them here into one column and get a reading like that. So bearishness for this market is occurring here in the second week, and then again in the fourth week before we get a rally in the very last day of the month. So there's your bearish areas for the Canadian dollar. And here is the seasonal price chart for gold. Gold has January as the most bullish month. It finishes higher 66% of the time and has made just over $53,000 in the back test. So if we look at the seasonal indicator at the bottom, we see that January actually comes after it makes its usual annual lows towards the end of the year, early fall, late fall, in the end of the year prior, and then continues its rally until it hits a couple of peaks in the spring. So we're heading that way right now. But what happens usually is during this rally, the strongest point is right now as we head into January. And actually, this is kind of a rollover trade. If you remember from previous videos we're following on the website, we highlighted that gold gets really strong right around Christmas, and then that follows through right into the new year. So that's where we are right now. So let's have a look how gold looks on the heat maps. And here is the gold heat map for January. And you'll see here in the very first week, we got a bunch of bright greens. And in the next week, a bunch more bright greens. These are really 2 weeks we want to concentrate on. And we do have a little bit here in the fourth week, in about the middle of the week, we have some bright greens there as well. But really, the bearishness, or the bullishness, sorry, in gold is these first couple of weeks. And these are a carryover from the year before around Christmas and then carrying forward into the new year. So a lot of these are very good dollar values. Gold, you're never going to get that great of winning percentages. If you get anything above 80, those are really good. But a lot of times you'll have really good dollar values, but the winning percentage is only in the 70s. Like these ones here, for instance, we have in the 70s, but we have $20,000 net profit. 70s again, 15,000. And then we have here, this is the one to really highlight if I'm looking to point out just a certain area. It's right in here. The end of next week, we have an 88% and 13,000. And on specifically January 10th, 17 consecutive January 10ths have finished higher than they have opened, selling on the open of the next day after being in a trade for one day. And that has made just under $20,000 on that trade on date. And this one here, date left of the month. So this is the 15th trading day left of the month is 87%, has made 20,000. So this is a very good area in here to be bullish on gold. And as always, here is our look at the stocks with the S&P E-minis. January is historically the second most bearish month of the year. It's only finished higher than it has opened 50% of the time, and it's only $1,375 loss, which is basically even when you consider this is over 20 years in a back test. But considering the upward drift of the stock markets, this is a pretty bad return. And if we look at the seasonal indicator at the bottom, we see January comes in and we get a big decline. Each of these years are looking a lot similar. And if we look at the price itself, this one followed along. We saw it go up initially and then it drops off. This one dropped off pretty much right away. And last year we actually got a rally. So let's see how this year looks, and let's have a look at the heat map and see if there's anything we can point out on there. Well, no surprise here, really. This is what a heat map is going to look like in a market that has been relatively flat in terms of dollar values. Remember, it only lost $1,300 over these years, so we're going to have a smattering of reds and greens, and there's a lot of days that aren't filled with anything, which means they're pretty much flat days, those white ones that don't have anything in them. Now, although this is a bearish month, we actually do have more greens than reds on here, but really, there's nothing here really to pinpoint on. There's nothing standing out. We have some bright greens at the bottom, but we have that mixed with some bright reds, so that's not great. In the second week here, we do have a couple of columns here with some greens, but the numbers aren't fantastic. They're in the 70s, and this one here is in the 80s, but it's barely made much money. So there's nothing really here I'm looking for in the stock market for January. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified on our next videos. Simplexity Analytics, making complex trading simple.